Author Willet Ryder said, "Hobbies are both a mystery and a delight. They're a mystery because many people with hobbies don't always share them with others. They're a delight because of the pure joy they provide to the hobbyist, making hours pass like minutes." I feel like I always had hobbies, or at least passions that I chased. As a child, it was comic books. Those colorful pages bringing amazing worlds to life in my head. I spent many hours reading, sorting, and chasing down comic books. From the World War II bunkers with Sergeant Rock to the jungles of Bengalia with the Phantom, I spent my nights and weekends going through those amazing books. While my eyes were filled with comic images, my ears were filled with music. Mostly the old 45 RPM records my father had collected as a child. I remember playing those 40s, 50s, and 60s singles while reading my comic books. Those are memories I will always cherish. As I grew older, it was movies and sports. From football in high school to catching a new movie every Friday and Saturday night with my friends while cruising the city streets around North Park and Green River Road. Those were big kid hobbies, and they cost money, a trend that was only going to get worse as I grew up. And then there was shooting. My father taught me how to shoot a pistol when I was young, and every chance I got, I would go out to the woods behind the house and shoot. At the time, I never really looked at those things as hobbies. They were just what I did. Once I hit college and eventually started working full-time, all those things I used to do in my free time disappeared. Long hours at work, overtime, extra duty gigs, and socializing filled my hours. Even if you stay with the hobbies, you don't get to do them as often as you would like. You find yourself wishing for some free time to dive back into them, or in some cases, you just can't afford them anymore. So they become things you used to do instead of hobbies. Then you retire, and you realize how much free time you have. That's when you wish you hadn't hung up all those hobbies years ago. It's time to start telling our own stories. I'm Steve Kellums, and welcome to Blue Canary. Let's talk about hobbies. I've never been lacking when it comes to hobbies, but the problem I did have when I was on the job was time. I just never seemed to have time for hobbies. With the overtime, family time, and of course, once I started teaching, it just seemed there was never enough hours in the day. Golf was probably the first of my adult hobbies. Guys at the department were playing, and when it came up, I said, sure, I'd love to play. I remember picking my first set of golf clubs up in a Kmart. I didn't have a ton of money at the time, and since I didn't know anything about golf, it seemed like a perfect idea to buy a set of clubs from the cheapest place I could find. I used those McGregor clubs for many years, but to be clear, when I say use them, I do mean badly. As I got better over the years, I picked up better clubs, but the progression was very slow. I really didn't play more than a half a dozen times a year, and always with people from work. One of the things I realized is that I never played on my own. It was a social thing, and while I enjoyed it, calling it a hobby wasn't really accurate. A hobby that carried over from childhood was video games. As a Gen Xer, I was an early adopter of video games. As a senior in high school, I spent my work money on a Commodore 64 computer, not to learn how to code, but to play video games. Once I got on the job and started making some real money, I started buying every new video game that came out, and the computer to go with it. From games like Doom, Quake, Duke Nukem, and Counter-Strike, to games like X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter, XCOM, and of course Madden Football. I did spend a lot of downtime playing those video games. Speaking of games, my passion didn't stop with the video version. I had a long-time love of Dungeons & Dragons. Okay, not D&D per se, but tabletop role-playing games. I'd started playing role-playing games before I hit my teens, and that continued until I got to college. Once I started on the police department, I realized that one of my coworkers was also an avid player, and quickly it became an every Sunday event. I was working nights, and we would get together about 1 p.m. and start playing until about 6 or 7 p.m., and then we would wrap up and head back into work. The last real hobby I picked up while on the job revolved around my love of shooting. My father had taught me how to shoot a handgun at a young age, and as I became more interested in law enforcement, he continued to not only teach me a little, but more importantly, give me opportunities to practice. I wasn't bad for a cop, and I soon became a department firearms instructor. Here's a little tip for all of you listeners out there. If you want to guarantee you don't get to shoot anymore, become a firearms instructor. I know it's counterintuitive, but ask any firearms instructor out there and they'll tell you they spend a lot of time looking over a shooter's shoulder and very little time looking through the sights. I was looking for a hobby that would let me shoot more, and I also wanted to get involved in competition shooting to help push my skills. I was a little concerned that I might pick up bad habits in some of the competitive shooting sports that would carry over into my work. By the way, I was wrong. All shooting is good shooting. So I found a shooting sport that was very different from my day job: cowboy action shooting. This shooting sport involves the competitors dressing up in period-accurate clothing and shooting period-accurate reproductions of firearms from the Old West. That's right, it's the adult version of playing cowboy. The competition involves using 4 guns, 2 pistols, a rifle, and a shotgun to complete a specific shooting stage under time. Misses add time to your final score, and the lowest time wins the stage. String together 6 to 12 stages, and you have yourself a match. I loved it. Golf, video games, role-playing games, and cowboy action shooting. That's a lot of hobbies. Where did I find the time to do all those? I didn't. You see, I fell victim to the same trap many of you fall victim to. You find something you enjoy that helps relieve the stress of the job, and then you don't do it. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, in his lecture, The Bulletproof Mind, would talk about hobbies, and he would ask the class about their hobbies. It was always interesting to see the students talk about something they really loved, from hunting to fishing to camping to bicycle riding. And Dave would always follow up with, "When's the last time you did it?" The students would always pause and think about it. The answers would range from weeks to months, and in some cases, years. Dave would then say, "You don't have a hobby." The key to hobbies is to do them. And unfortunately, while we tend to grab onto hobbies easily, setting aside the time to enjoy them is a different thing. All of those hobbies I listed above, and a few more I didn't, found a backseat to work and life. The golf clubs gathered dust in the garage. The guns languished in the safe, and the Sunday game days disappeared into oblivion. The structure of work and home became my life, and that can make retirement almost unbearable.
The Legal Liability Risk Management Institute is the nation's largest provider of liability and risk management services in the United States. Our goal is to help reduce liability, reduce lawsuits, and enhance officer performance. Regardless of the size of your agency, we have a risk management solution. You may contact us at www.llrmi.com or call 317-386-8325.
Without those hobbies, that couch will start calling your name, and soon you will find yourself physically and emotionally drained. That couch doesn't let you relax. It eats at you from the inside out. After retirement, I dove back into those hobbies, or at least some of them. The first thing I did was buy a guitar. I had always wanted to learn how to play a guitar, and I decided retirement was the perfect time to learn. I'm still working on that one. My father passed away shortly after I retired, and his love of music and albums seemed to carry on with me. I started collecting vinyl records, and not just collecting them, but listening to them, hunting for them, and truly enjoying them like my father did. I can't pass a dingy basement used record shop without wandering inside and flipping through albums for hours. This podcast became an active hobby for me. It sprung up from the isolation of COVID and has gotten me interested in the process of podcasting as well as the creative outlet of making and editing episodes. You might be surprised at how much time podcasting can take up in a week. Between writing scripts, setting up interviews, editing and touching up recordings, to posting on social media, it has truly become an enjoyable hobby for me in retirement. And while the occasional golf and video games still find their way into my weekly activities, the real lifesaver for me has been the tabletop role-playing games. I got back into the role-playing community and have found myself occupied with weekly games and yearly conventions such as Gen Con to encourage my interests. I even started a weekly gaming podcast called Epic Adventure. If you're interested in role-playing, gaming, game design, and all things tabletop role-playing, then go ahead and do a search for Epic Adventure. Like, subscribe, share, you know the drill. These hobbies really help fill the time and keep me interested and engaged in the day-to-day life after policing. But don't take my word for it. Listen to the experts. First, hobbies help improve your mental health. Hobbies are a powerful tool to manage stress and improve your mood. Creative hobbies such as writing, painting, and yes, role-playing can substantially reduce depression, anxiety, and stress. Studies have linked creative hobbies to lowering cortisol levels, a stress hormone, and improving mood. One of the specific things I love about role-playing games is the ability to help process trauma in a safe setting. It can really help you look at the world you've spent a significant part of your life in differently and help you cope with the decades of tamped-down emotions. Second, physical hobbies will keep you alive. Moving every day is important, and taking on physical hobbies such as cycling, skiing, kayaking, running, hiking, or even walking can have significant effect on your retired self. You will be amazed at how fast your physical health can get away from you after retirement. You don't have to fit into a uniform anymore, and since people aren't trying to kill you every day, you don't need to stay in shape. But never forget, that couch is a killer. Third, mentally stimulating hobbies like learning a foreign language, taking up a musical instrument, or solving puzzles can significantly improve your cognitive function, including memory, and can reduce the risk of dementia later in life. Fourth, hobbies can significantly improve our social life. If you're a cop, then most of your friends are cops. And I have some bad news for you. The day you retire will be the last day you hear from those friends. I know that sounds horrible, but it's true. Retired cops are like kryptonite for working cops. They internally resent that you made it out, and besides, they've got work to do. No matter how hard you try to keep those connections open, they will just dry up, and eventually you will realize that people you talked with and joked with every day haven't spoken to you in years. That means that you don't have any friends anymore, and making new friends for a cop is tough. We are so used to those quick friendships forged in trauma that the normal way for making friends doesn't come easy for us. Hobbies help bridge that gap. I often can't wait to talk to the guys I compete with in the cowboy action shooting sports. And when it's been a couple of months since I've seen them, I start feeling a real need to put on my boots, pull up a chair at the campfire, and shoot the shit over some Kentucky bourbon. And my role-playing group, made up of teachers, IT professionals, retired military, and a doctoral student, have become like a second family for me. I look forward to those weekly games, and I can get really bummed when we have to skip them for a couple of weeks. Do not underestimate the importance of social connections after retirement, and hobbies are one of the best ways to meet people and interact with them. And fifth, as a cop, we always felt a sense of accomplishment. It's one of the most rewarding jobs you can have. From locking up the bad guy to changing a lady's tire, every day you were able to take something away from that job, something important. What you did mattered. When you retire, do you really matter anymore? That's the rub, the thing that can crawl into your brain and start eating away at your soul. Hobbies can help combat that feeling. With hobbies, you can get a sense of accomplishing something, of reaching that personal goal, of finishing that puzzle, writing that book, completing that painting, or wrapping up that podcast. These are just a few of the benefits of having hobbies. Here is my call to action. Take a look around and find those hobbies, those things you like to do, the things that give you enjoyment, that present challenges, that give you a sense of accomplishment, and start nurturing them. Don't let them die on the vine because you've got too much work to do. Set aside some time. Let's start with once a month. 12 times a year, that's all. Just once a month to do something you love and enjoy, something that helps you relax and lets you meet people outside of policing. Keep those hobbies going, and as you get closer to retirement, it will be easy to fill your days with activity. And who knows, maybe you'll take up guitar. I hope you have better success than I did. And that's the story we have to tell. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm curious what questions you're getting asked. What isn't the news covering? What story needs to be told? Connect with me at bluecanarypodcast@gmail.com.